Two forces have shaped every human being that has ever lived. One whispers, say yes, create, dominate, rise, live by your own terms. The other hisses, say no, obey, resent, shrink, live by the rules of others. Friedrich Nietzsche called this the battle between master and slave moralities. And it's not some abstract theory buried in old books. It's the war inside each of us every single day. Are we living like a master, creating ourselves with strength and conviction, or have we surrendered to the voice of the slave, acting out of guilt, obedience, and resentment? Today we're going to put ourselves to the test. We're going to look deep within to discover which force truly guides our thoughts, our decisions, and the path we walk. By the end of this video, you will recognize which voice is leading your life, and more importantly, you'll understand how to rise above both and claim a path that is truly your own. So stay with us until the very end, because this isn't just about philosophy, it's about you, it's about the life you're choosing and the life you're meant to live. The origin of master-slave morality. To understand ourselves, we have to understand where this divide began. Nietzsche tells us it's as old as mankind itself. In ancient times, the strong shaped the world. The noble, those he called the masters, lived by instinct and strength. They defined their own values. What felt true, strong, and life-affirming became good. What felt petty, weak, or life-denying became bad. These masters didn't ask permission. They acted from a place deep within themselves, from a sense of abundance, of belonging to life itself. Then came a shift. The oppressed, those who felt powerless, began to create their own morality as a weapon. They felt resentment towards the strong. What they lacked in strength they replaced with cunning and guilt. So began the rise of the slave mentality, a value system built on saying no. No to the strong, no to instinct, no to self-assertion. Nietzsche called this shift the revaluation of all values. The slave took the master's good and called it evil, and in doing so, created a new good, one rooted in obedience, guilt, humility, and mediocrity. As Nietzsche writes, the knightly aristocratic value judgment is based upon a strong self-affirmation, whereas slave morality begins by saying no to an outside, to an other, to a not self, and this no is its creative deed. What does this mean? It means that every person today, every one of us, is shaped by these two ancient forces, the desire to rise, to create, to assert ourselves, and the fear that makes us shrink, obey, and resent. Master and slave aren't just roles people play. They are forces within the human psyche, forces that shape the ancient world, forces that shape civilizations, forces that shape the very thoughts you have every morning when you open your eyes. The tragedy is that most of us don't even notice. We walk through life believing our thoughts are ours, that our values are ours, when often they were handed to us long ago. Not by ourselves, not by life, but by a system designed to keep certain people strong and others broken. The question is, will you continue to live by inherited rules? Will you remain a witness, a pawn of a long-forgotten war? Or will you recognize it and rise above it? That is the test, not for philosophers, not for historians, but for you, here, now. What is master morality? What does it mean to live as a master? According to Nietzsche, it has nothing to do with status, titles, or being a tyrant. It has to do with how we relate to ourselves and to life. The master lives from a deep sense of strength, not strength to dominate others, but strength to stand firm in their own values. The master doesn't ask, what does the world expect of me? They ask, what do I expect of myself? Master morality is about saying yes to life, to instinct, to possibility. It's about accepting life as it is and choosing to create from that reality. The master doesn't run from pain or struggle, because to him, these aren't enemies. They are teachers, challenges to overcome, tools for growth. The master doesn't define themselves by others. They don't wait for permission to pursue their passions. They don't ask for acceptance or belonging. They carve their path because it feels right to their core. This is why Nietzsche admired ancient heroes, the warrior, the creator, the noble, not because they conquered nations, but because they conquered themselves. The master looks inward first. They claim the right to define who they are. Nietzsche once said, "What is noble is what affirms itself." In other words, a master doesn't need to justify their existence. They don't need external validation. They know their worth. Master morality doesn't waste time blaming others. It doesn't seek revenge. It doesn't cling to resentment. The master understands that life is harsh, that it will test, break, and reshape us. And instead of fearing this truth, the master embraces it. Look around at those who build worlds, those who rise from nothing, those who stand tall despite criticism and betrayal. These are echoes of the master mentality. Not brute force, not cruelty, but an unshakable belief in themselves. An instinct that says, I am here for a reason, and I will shape this world, not be shaped by it. And here's the challenge for all of us. We can spend a lifetime looking for a signal, for a sign, for someone to tell us we're enough. Or we can become the signal. We can rise to that higher place where doubt no longer commands, where guilt no longer tames. That is the master within. Not a tyrant over others, but a creator of ourselves. Not a slave to circumstance, but a force that turns circumstance into fuel. This path is harder. It's lonelier. It demands more. But it's also the path that gives life its richness, its depth, its beauty. The master doesn't wait for life to justify itself. The master gives life its justification. And this is where the test lies for you. Will you continue looking for permission? Will you continue accepting a role shaped by others? Or will you rise to the challenge of shaping yourself? Knowing, fully knowing, that the cost of that freedom is worth every step. That is the call of the master, and it's a call every one of us can answer. What is slave morality? If the master lives by saying yes to life, the slave lives by saying no. Not a no that protects or strengthens, but a no born from fear, resentment, and a sense of being wronged. Slave morality doesn't arise from strength. It grows out of pain, out of a feeling that the world has treated us unfairly. It's rooted in the thought, if I can't rise, then I will drag down those who have. Look around. We've all met people like this. People who measure themselves and others by how well they conform, who quietly judge those with bold dreams, those who stand apart, not because those dreamers are bad, but because deep down it reminds them of their own surrender. Slave morality doesn't create, it reacts. It doesn't build its own path, it criticizes the paths of others. It finds comfort in belonging, in being one of the group. It finds strength in the idea that obedience is a virtue, that guilt is a sign of worth, and that to rise too high is to invite condemnation. Why? Because it's safer to fit in. It's easier to hide in the crowd. The slave mentality doesn't ask, what do I want from life? It asks, what am I allowed to want? What am I allowed to be? Nietzsche warned that this mindset doesn't just stay within one person. It spreads. It becomes a force, reshaping nations, reshaping history. The slave takes pride in saying no to strength, in teaching obedience as a virtue, in treating resentment as a badge of honor. And the tragedy? This doesn't only happen out in the world, it happens within ourselves. Every time we bury a desire because it feels too bold, every time we silence ourselves because it feels too dangerous, every time we accept a role we don't respect because we fear what others might say, that is the voice of the slave within, the part that chooses belonging over belonging to ourselves. This is why Nietzsche spoke so sharply about slave morality. Not because it makes people bad, but because it makes them small. It robs us of a chance to create ourselves, to live openly and bravely. It replaces that chance with a quiet life of conformity, guilt, and resentment. And here's the hard question we must ask ourselves. Are we accepting life as it is, shaping it and finding strength? Or are we shrinking from it, making ourselves smaller, harder, weaker, more bitter? That is the heart of the test. Not in some abstract theory, but in the choices we make every day, in how we speak, how we work, how we love, how we live. The slave mentality can be learned, but it can also be unlearned. The voice of the slave can be silenced, and a stronger voice, the voice of the master within, can rise. The question is simple. Will you continue to live by a no that shrinks your life? Or will you find the courage to live by a yes that can transform it? The choice is ours, always. The battle within. The truth is, this war doesn't happen out there between people. It doesn't matter if we call ourselves masters or slaves, leaders or followers. The real struggle is inside every one of us. Each morning when we open our eyes, that battle begins. Will we rise to create or sink to conform? Will we listen to the voice that says, trust yourself, risk it, stand tall, or the voice that whispers, play it safe, stay quiet, don't stand out? This is the tension Nietzsche spoke of, the tension between strength and doubt, between saying yes to life and saying no out of fear. We like to imagine this as a clash between other people, the masters and the slaves. But that's too simple. The harder truth is that both live within us. We've all felt it, the moment we have an idea, an ambition, a calling that excites us, and then a quiet voice in the back of our mind replies, who are you to try? What if you fail? What will people say? That voice is the slave within, not because we are worthless, but because we have learned to doubt ourselves, to measure ourselves by external rules. Then there's another voice, quieter, deeper, that says, try it, be bold, fail if you must, but live fully, live bravely. That is the voice of the master within, not a tyrant, not an oppressor, but the part of ourselves that knows life is worth the risk, worth the struggle. Each day, these two forces whisper to us. They shape how we work, how we love, how we carry ourselves through the world. And every choice we make, no matter how small, feeds one voice or the other. Nietzsche tells us that knowing this is the first step. The second is choosing which voice to honor. Will we continue acting from guilt, obedience, and resentment, or will we stand tall, claim ourselves, and create a life that feels like ours? This is the battle within, not a one-time choice, but a daily practice, not a war we win once, but one we must acknowledge, accept, and rise to every morning we draw breath. And here's the truth that can set us free. It doesn't matter where we came from. It doesn't matter how many times we've chosen silence or conformity in the past. What matters is the choice we make today. In this moment, will you listen to the voice that shrinks or the voice that strives? Will you walk a path shaped by others, or will you carve a path shaped by yourself? That is the test of a lifetime, and it's happening within you right now. The path beyond master and slave. At this point, one thing is clear. Life is more than a tug-of-war between master and slave. We don't have to be chained by either role. The true path, the one Nietzsche urged us to find, is a path beyond both. A path where we recognize these forces within ourselves, accept them, and rise above them. What does this mean? It means understanding that both voices, the voice of strength and the voice of doubt, have shaped us. The point is not to kill one and crown the other, but to listen, to learn, and to create ourselves from a higher place, to walk a path that is truly ours. Nietzsche called this the path of the Übermensch, the person who doesn't reject life, doesn't hide from its trials, doesn't cling to its rules, but embraces it fully. The person who says, yes, this is my life. Its pain, its beauty, its challenge, its chance, and I will make it worth living. To walk this path is to become the sculptor of ourselves. To recognize when fear speaks, when resentment whispers, when guilt tries to take the wheel, and to respond consciously, not with denial, but with strength, not with anger, but with clarity, not with despair, but with purpose. This is the choice we have every morning when we rise. Will we be shaped by old rules, old wounds, old habits? Or will we rise to shape ourselves, knowing that this life, this moment, is ours to claim? To live beyond master and slave means accepting ourselves fully, not as we wish to be, but as we are, not as a hero or a victim, but as a creator. Someone who can carry both strength and vulnerability, both conviction and doubt, and still move forward. That is the lesson Nietzsche left for those brave enough to listen. We can walk this path. We can rise beyond labels and roles. We can create ourselves anew every day. We can find a way that is authentically ours. The question is simple. Will we stand at the crossroads and choose? Will we have the strength to accept ourselves, to love ourselves, and to create ourselves? Will we walk the path beyond master and slave and become at last truly free? The choice is ours, always. The choice is ours, always. Will we stay where it's safe, shaped by old rules, old fears, and old wounds, or will we rise, claim ourselves, and walk the path that is truly ours? Nietzsche's message was never about labels, it was about power. The power to define ourselves, to create ourselves, to rise beyond master and slave and become something more. If this spoke to you, if it stirred that quiet voice deep within, don't walk away unchanged. Begin today. Subscribe for more ideas that challenge, awaken, and inspire. Comment and tell us, which voice will you listen to? Share this with someone who needs to remember that their life is theirs to shape. Remember, you are not condemned to a role. You are the author of your own story. Will you write it? Will you live it? Will you rise? The choice is yours, and it always has been.